Hello everyone. It's pleasure to introduce respected Sunay Jariwala ji. He is proprietor Sunay J and Company and ex-partner with MS DV Shah and Associates, having offices at Surat and Ahmedabad. He is practicing chartered accountant for more than 20 years of practice in taxation and specialization in regulation for service tax and GST. Keep impaired faculty for indirect taxes GST by ICAI and nominated as a co-opted member in indirect tax committee. So welcome, sir Sonay Jariwala ji. Please bless us with your words.
A very good evening to all. Thank you, Sanjay, and I thanks the organizing team of Text Group for giving us this platform to share my views and insights on effective drafting and strategy for GSTAT. So, are we all ready? Yes, friends. As we begin, I like to keep the language in mostly in English and Hindi as well, as there was some request from other participants. फ्रेंड्स हम जिस्टेट पे जाए जिस्टेट की बात करें उससे पहले आई लाइक टू brief you with a small real short story of taxation itself. Late 1980s में एक किस्सा हुआ था. I'll just like to highlight it and I'll also share the reason for mentioning the same. North east part of India में there used to be a doctor who was into his medicine practice. Incidentally, he had also started manufacturing narcotic substances behind his clinic in a laboratory made and developed by him. Once the information reached the authorities, the area was raided, the narcotic goods were seized and destroyed. Then the legal proceedings, etc. went on. We are coming down to the income tax aspect for this doctor. This gentleman had shown his business loss of the goods raided, seized, and destroyed by the authorities. Please bear in mind, we are not discussing the morality character of the legality or illegality of the business. We are just focused on the allowability of the business expenditure under Income Tax Act. The matter reached up to the Supreme Court. In the appeals tribunal as well, the business loss was not allowed, but the apex court reversed these rulings and the business loss for the goods destroyed was allowed for this gentleman. So friends, हालांकि वो एक्टिविटी इलीगल थी, स्टॉक वो नार्कोटिक सब्सटेंसेस था, as we all are aware, which is banned and illegal in India. बट उसको ये बिजनेस लॉस अलाउ हुआ. सोचने की बात है कि वाई सो. Apex Court have clearly written down in their judgment that to distinguish the minute aspects of taxation law and other laws, yani although this activity was illegal in eyes of law, the business expenditure claim had to be allowed. So moving forward, these are the minute aspects wherein the law, taxation law, GST also runs. In today's session, we will go through various aspects mostly related to drafting. As we all are aware, GSTAT has begun. The online filing has already initiated. And yesterday itself, the first GSTAT order of Principal Bench Delhi has also come out. During our today's session, we'll be discussing few of the such case laws. practical insights as well. I've made a presentation and be rest assured it will be shared with all of you. So that's not an issue at all. So let's begin. As we start, I'd like you all to ponder for 5 minutes. Let's move away from taxation and GST. Reason so. Today we all have gathered on this virtual platform. So all the participants are eyeing or are already into litigation practice. Litigation starts from reply to a first notice, moving forward to adjudication, first appeals, second appeals, that is GSTAT, High Court and Apex Court, as we all are aware. Now, friends, under erstwhile law, if you might be aware, CESTAT, Central Excise and Service Tax Tribunal, Customs, were having only 9 benches in India. GSTAT is coming up with 31 benches. And we all are aware of the tremendous opportunity and scope of GST disputes, which will move forward and will be taken up by GSTAT across India. My personal question to young fellows and those who are not into tribunal practices, and to all of us, do we think or are we ready to take up this litigation practice? Of course, as we all have joined here together, the answer is yes. But apart from technical knowledge, what else do we require to hit the bullseye? Friends, the first and foremost aspect which I feel is of paramount importance is the mindset and belief system. Why so? Young professionals might have not been to CESTAT or tribunal as well. There might not have been any opportunity till date, but now they will be entering and taking up cases for GST tribunal. So the technical knowledge is important, but before that, the pre-preparations are of more importance, I feel. So how to break out from this belief system? One will need to come into a discomfort zone. Anything great will be achievable by determination and persuasion itself. All skills are learnable. If someone else can appear, then why not me? To have faith in ourselves. We need to think upon and make a why bigger than others. So after this session, at the end, when you are having some idle spare time with yourself, to note down 10 to 15 points why we want to practice into ITT. List can be long, but the purpose and the core reason, apart from flourishing the practice of this aspect, I feel should be service to taxpayer and the clients for whom we will be pleading our cases. Success doesn't come if you chase it or chase money or fame. We need to set a higher purpose. So with this opening remarks, let's venture ahead for today's session. The session is divided into 3 to 4 different parts. Initial few slides are regarding GSTAT structure, little on theory aspect, and as the today's session goes on, we will move towards the practical aspect, case laws, and other things. So stay tuned and let's have this journey together. We all are aware of the basic structure of GSTAT, Appellate Tribunal. It is a specialized authority to resolve GST disputes. It's also called second appeals. First appeals is with commissioner or ADC appeals. Second appeal comes with tribunal. It is a common forum to solve these disputes. This will be the structure. Now, for each bench, 2 judicial members and 2 technical members will be taken up. So maybe there'll be 2 courts at most of the benches. After tribunal is the last fact-finding authority. If it is a question of law, then the matter can move up to High Court or Supreme Court. But facts. Now, what are facts? What is its importance? How are it different? Then we take it up at the adjudication stage that we will come to know in today's deliberation. Benefits from GSTAT. Low pendency, faster disposal of cases. Tribunals will clarify the provisions wherein at times the relief is not being got by the taxpayers at the lower forums. Swift, fair and judicious, effective dispute resolution. Just give me a second, I will minimize. Yeah. Swift, fair, judicial resolution, effective resolution. Faster disposal of cases. We all are aware for the first appeal, 10% pre-deposit amount has been locked up. And if you want to go to GSTAT, then another 10% needs to be paid as a pre-deposit. For those who are having higher amounts of demand, then 10 or 20% also becomes a good quantifiable amount, which may impact their working capital of their businesses. Fourth point, final fact-finding body that we have already discussed. Advantages of approaching tribunal. Why should we go to tribunal? And also, friends, please bear in mind, all orders or all cases may not be even fit for a tribunal. So it's not that it is the next step, we need to climb it or we need to approach the tribunal compulsorily. So what are the advantages? Specialized adjudication, appeal mechanism, specific expertise. Tribunal members have specialized knowledge and experience in GST, which can ensure more fair and consistent decisions. Faster resolution, precedent setting, cost effectiveness. Informal procedures as compared to traditional courts, making it easier for parties without being overwhelmed by complex legal processes. GSTAT is not bound by code of civil procedure, but they possess powers similar to a civil court. They can call for public records, issue commissions for witness examination, and dismiss or decide representations for default. So friends, it is a quasi-judicial, semi-judicial authority. Few of the points wherein why appeal may not be admitted by GSTAT. For the present scenario, GSTAT is yet to start fully functional and hearings will move on in coming months. So these all are the pointers which we need to take care before we decide to move to GSTAT. As they were applicable with GSTAT, it will be the similar case, maybe little different as per GST provisions, but prima facie, it will be on the same grounds. Limitation period. At present, the limitation period will not be levied because for GSTAT, as we all are aware, 30 June 26 is the last filing date as of now. So till then, all the orders received before 31st March 26 needs to be filed by 30th June timeline. And those orders received after 1st April 26 needs to be filed as per their limitation period, which is 3 months. Jurisdiction issues. Friends, please bear in mind matters pertaining to POS, place of supply, needs to be filed with Principal Bench Delhi, and hence selection of forum or the bench is also important. Pre-deposit requirement is a simpler thing. We are not going into the same. Non-compliance with procedures. Yeah. Recently, a circular dated January 26 was issued, wherein the GSTAT president have allowed and decided to take a lenient view for the appeals being filed for first 6 months from 20th Jan 26, that is up till 20 July 26. Only grave and material substance, the defects in appeal should be carried out. The registry has been informed not to carry out procedural aspects and take a lenient view for the same. As this is the beginning of GST tribunal, there might be some procedural flaws, defects in the appeals filed by taxpayers and their authorized representatives. So to ensure a smooth transition, such circular has been issued, which is a welcome step from the department, that is government. Appeals may not be admitted due to other reasons like inadequate grounds, lack of authorization, deficient fee payment. Coming to next concept of doctrine of judicial precedence. First rule, it says court which is low in hierarchy is completely bound by the decisions of courts which are above it. Meaning thereby to say the ruling judgments of Bombay High Court needs to be followed in Maharashtra as well. It may not be directly levied or applicable for other states. Second rule, higher courts are bound by their own decision in general in matters of related to precedence. The decision of High Court are binding on all subordinate cases. In case of conflict between two benches of similar authorities, the later decision, the decision which has come recently, needs to be followed. For courts, if there's more number of judges on the bench, higher is their authority. Decision of one High Court will not be binding of other High Courts. What is the same for Supreme Court? Supreme Court is highest authority and its decisions will be binding on all courts of the country. Article 141 states all courts are legally bound by Supreme Court judicial decisions with the exception of the Supreme Court itself, meaning thereby Supreme Court is not bound by its own decisions. However, Supreme Court recognizes that its earlier decisions cannot be deviated from except in case of extenuating circumstances. Few apex court judgments we have seen wherein they had been ruled back or some changes have been made in the recent judgments as opposed to the earlier judgments and the earlier methodology being followed in the taxation era. If an earlier decision is found to be incorrect, the Supreme Court will deviate from it. And the same has already been happened. Few mentionings of functioning of GSTAT. Yeah, this is important. Please pay attention. Situation when one OI is linked to multiple OIOs, meaning where Commissioner Appeal has passed one order covering 3 different OIOs, odd and original. Then at GSTAT, you must file separate appeal forms for each OIO. And other way down, one order for multiple purpose. One order is passed jointly against company A and B. Each person will need to file their own separate appeal. No joint or common appeal will be allowed. Next, practical case studies to highlight common issues in drafting and presentation. Friends, drafting is similar to an art and a science, and hence there are some thumb rules, but there are no fixed boundaries or limited boundaries. There are many aspects on the same which will be covered in our today's deliberation. Practical guide for handling appeals effectively. We need to focus on legal, procedural, and drafting aspects. GST appeal is not just about filing forms, it requires strategic preparation. Why and how strategy comes into play, we'll see from a judgment. Objective to ensure appeals are well structured, legally valid, and timely filed. Following best practices can improve chance of success. Now, that was the summary and the crux. How to go it? Sorry. Let's see it in detail. Primary importance is to understand the case. Before taking up the case or reading the notice, intimation, SCN order, appeal order. Friends, it's important to know and understand the client's business. Also, we need to see how their industry or the particular line of business operates. At times, few important aspects at a later stage will creep out of this initial background introduction or the background efforts which have been put by us. Next, what it says, read the demand order carefully. Review tax penalty interest imposed. We need to take care that the quantification in SCN and the demand order is same, and demand order's amount is not more than the tax amount of SCN. Understand reasons for demand, not just figures. Misinterpretation weakens the appeal. We need to review rejection of earlier SCN replies. That on what grounds, on what basis did the department didn't give justice to the taxpayer, or the points taken up in their reply by the previous consultants were not appreciated. So, to know why, the reasoning is more important rather than rushing towards filing of first appeals or the second appeals. To check if it's a speaking order, order must explain reasoning for conclusions. What was presented, what was the discussion, what was the findings, on what grounds the adjudicating or the appellate authority did not get convinced or did not give relief to the taxpayer. Vague orders, example ITC rejected without explanation, are challengeable. And at times a call needs to be taken on basis of case to case, which cases should be moved to first or second appeals or should be directly moved to the High Court itself. Second point, review rejection of earlier SCN replies. If SCN was filed and rejected, analyze why. Learn from mistakes and refine arguments. Next, verify procedural validity. We have discussed compare SCN versus final order. Check limitation period. Very important. Few months back, I received a notice from a CA friend. The issue was regarding the RCM on royalty aspect. The SCN was time barred. So after going through the notice and while checking the limitation period, just a one paragraph answer was suffice to pull back the SCN issued by the department. Next, ensure opportunity of hearing. Section 75(4) says hearing is mandatory in adverse orders. Absence of hearing is violation of natural justice, and in such cases, if you move directly to High Court, then also you can get probably good justice. Of course, now as GSTAT has started being functional, there might be a chance the High Court may not entertain the writ and may tell to avail the alternate remedies. But a call needs to be taken on case-to-case basis, and what are the probabilities and opportunities with High Court as well. Build legal grounds. Identify the disputed provisions, focus on exact legal issue. Is the matter pertaining to tax rate, classification, ITC claim, underpayment, short payment of tax? If there was a short payment, then what were the reason? Were the reconciliations submitted in our reply, or the same was not submitted at length? Was the submitted submissions being read, analyzed, and understood by the authorities? If not, why? If yes, and they were not convinced, why? Stay updated with notifications and judgments, needless to say. Present strong and clear grounds. We'll discuss few common grounds at the end of this PPT. We have also prepared a template of order and the reply, the appeal itself, stating SOF, statements of facts and grounds of appeals. So we'll see many aspects as we, by 7 as we conclude today. Weak or vague grounds often get dismissed. Now a question arises, if your order, say it has 6 points, which point in grounds of appeal needs to be taken first? By practical insights, it is said that to take our strongest point first, or those points having high weightage regarding quantification of demand. So it's not necessary we need to follow the chronological order of the serial number of the order itself, issues 1, 2, 3. Of the quantification, then the later smaller issues required to be mentioned, but we may mention, we may not mention in the first 2 points. While drafting the appeal, to address each issue separately, we need to clearly identify point-wise what is accepted, what is disputed. And we need to take the tribunal bench members directly their focus on the real disputes. Confirm disputed amounts that we can skip. Other points for filing compliance, pay pre-deposit, adhere to timelines, review before submission, maintain proper records. For first appeal, some states still require physical submission. So we need to see the practice of those states as well. Under GSTAT, everything will be online filing and the hearings will be in hybrid mode. That is virtual and physical both. So to summarize, we need to understand the order, validate procedure, build legal grounds, draft carefully, file within timelines. Success of a case will depend on accuracy, legal strength, and procedure compliance. A systematic approach will make your appeal stand strong before authorities. Friends, the reason why first reply towards the notice at the beginning stage, why is it so crucial? At the adjudication level, itself, the reply and the stand taken by the authorized representative or the taxpayer themselves will make it clear that which facts have we disputed. Facts raised by the department, if not disputed specifically, will be considered as accepted. We will see the distinguishing between various facets of facts in our today's session itself. Another interesting slide regarding techniques for presenting facts persuasively with legal narrative. So till now we just saw an overview, what needs to be done, how it needs to be done. Now we are going little deep further, and then we'll take up drafting templates of SOF, grounds of appeal, and some case laws as well. Structure the storyline. We need to arrange the events in a chronological order, highlighting turning points which can strengthen our case. Tie facts to legal issues. So friends, although in the order there might be 2, 3, or 4 issues, we need to understand how and why they arise. What was the reason of coming up with the issues for the department? What all reply submissions have been given till now? All needs to be studied at length to make sure which stand has been taken till now, which has been disputed, which stand we could not dispute because for want of data, want of documents, or some important documents, such as in one of my previous appeal, practically there were 2 firms. One file of invoices for one firm was gone missing. So earlier also they couldn't submit it at the adjudication level, and now the matter has moved to first appeals. Next, tie facts to legal issues, meaning thereby present each fact in context of law so it directly supports a statutory requirement of defense. To exclude unnecessary details, focus only on facts that impact the dispute. Highlight contracts, place opponent's claim, the department part from the order, against their own document to reveal contradiction. To use neutral but firm language, we'll be seeing 5 specific slides on drafting, so this aspect will be covered. Corroborate with the record. Friends, it is important that what all facts we write or narrate in a GSTAT filing, it needs to be supported by a document or any evidence. Facts are something like a universal truth which cannot be disputed. But to prove or to make a point, we need to add evidence, proof, documentation for the same. Humanize where appropriate some genuine issue or difficulty. Anticipate objections. As we are preparing a draft on SOF, grounds of appeal, or even first appeals, we need to ponder, think, try to be in the shoes from DR departmental side, that what are the counters which can come in this case, what are the submissions, evidence, case laws in our favor which we can present or put up. A conscious call needs to be taken, how much to present, what to present, and more importantly, when to present. Next, to reinforce a central theme means to keep a consistent thread such as compliance, good faith, or departmental error into focus while we are preparing our document. A disciplined narrative linked with facts with law will naturally pursue the tribunal towards your conclusion. So three important aspects which we need to take care is coherent logical sequence, legal facts to be framed in light of statute, that is law, narrative story with content and with documentary evidence. Moving out, before we enter the drafting slides, we are moving to facts and some important aspect on facts as given by the new Bharatiya Sakshya Adhiniyam BSA Act 2023. As per GST, we all are aware, for ITC, burden on proof is on the taxpayer, and hence for all other aspects, it is on the department. Section 104 of BSA, what does it mention? That the person making an assertion must prove it. What is an assertion? A claim or statement that something is true. Now it's whose responsibility to make a claim or back up with evidence? It is responsibility of the person who is making the assertion. False without proof. If proof is not provided, the claim can be considered false. Who must prove? The person making the claim must prove it. Hence, we all are seeing that for ITC matters, the onus is on the taxpayer. But if for any other matters, the onus is put on to the taxpayer, then strategically, tactfully, we need to ensure that the assertion needs to be proved by the department themselves. Very interesting. Proof of undisputed facts. If a fact is not challenged, no proof is required. Facts form very basis and foundation of the claim of the statement made by either party. And friends, once the matter reaches the higher forums, the chances and scope to dispute facts starts diminishing. Hence, it is of vital importance to make our way strategically, plan our replies, give information only which is useful and as required, and not to share more than what is asked for. Practically, we have seen many cases wherein in the intimation, the tax demand was very less. After a couple of replies given by the then taxpayer and the in-house staff, the demand has been cropped up because the food of material, the issues which department wanted had already been provided by the taxpayer themselves. Under GST context, allegations supported by strong, unquestionable evidence become facts. And as I mentioned earlier, allegations that are not disputed are automatically accepted as facts. Omission to explain under section 16(4). For example, no burden on taxpayer for omission. If all the details under 3B are clear and undisputed, taxpayer is not required to explain interpretation of 16(4). Once the filing details are evident and uncontested, the taxpayer doesn't need any further explanation. With some time constraints and many things to cover, we'll just skip few of the slides and move on. To incorrect interpretation. It's not always necessary that what taxpayer says is right or what department says is right. Both might be wrong. Also, purpose of notice is just to test whether a different view is possible or not. It is not always to check the accuracy or the correctness of the firm or the transaction taken place. Herein, the role of adjudicating forums comes into play, where they do not choose between either to go with taxpayer or the revenue interpretation, but they will determine if the interpretation presented by revenue is legal and factually sustainable. A due process is there in GST which needs to be followed. The due process is not about discovering the truth, but testing the validity of alternate interpretation to challenge the taxpayer's self-assessment. As previously we were discussing, the first reply, why is it important? Friends, whenever we get a notice under GST, we need to look forward strategically and visualize that if this case reaches first or second appeals, then at present, what grounds needs to be taken, what facts needs to be put up, and which kind of documents or submissions are required at this stage, so that it will strengthen the case when it comes to the higher forums. That is, in first or second appeals. At times we have seen that the number of hearings, the explanations, the submissions which you can give at the first adjudicating proceedings level, we may not get the same at the higher forums. And that is a fact. All the reconciliations, statements, etc., credit notes, debit notes issued in time, late, those all aspects on facts basis, figures basis needs to be covered at the adjudicating proceedings. The reason why I'm saying this, as we move on, as I mentioned earlier in the beginning of the session, GSTAT Delhi bench has already issued their first GSTAT order, which is primarily based on this background itself. And we'll see what judgment the Honorable Tribunal has given. Fact. What is a fact? Anything perceived by senses. This I'm going with the literal definition of the act, or any mental condition. The arrangement of objects in certain order and place is a fact. To give a simple example, friends, if I say A, he is accused for the murder of B. I repeat, Mr. A is accused for the murder of B. So if we think which of this aspect are a fact, I'll give you the options. Has A done the crime? Was A available at the crime scene? Was A lastly seen with B before his news of death came? No, friends, none of this. Just the fact in this illustration is that Mr. B is dead. A is being accused of murdering Mr. B. So now you'll appreciate that from the issues, from the points, just the facts needs to be filtered out. Next. For paucity of time, I may skip a few slides beforehand, and if time permits, we'll again come back to the same, because I want to cover the more important aspects first. We'll skip a couple of fact slides. If time permits, we can come down later. Relevancy of facts. Evidence can be provided for facts in issues, restriction, explanation. This all is, you can go through and it will be more clear. Closely connected facts. Existence of course of business when relevant. Entries in books of accounts when relevant. Yeah. No need to prove admitted facts. If parties or the agents agree to admit certain facts, those facts need not be proved at the time of hearing. Facts can be admitted either at the hearing, before the hearing, or by pleadings. The court can still require the admitted facts to be proven through other evidences if it chooses. Like cross-examination is also one of the aspects. Facts are inviolable. Facts first. Facts needs to be known beforehand. It is essential to understand your business. Already discussed, facts are universally accepted proof. They are key to the case on hands. Business transaction morality of taxpayer is less material. Facts are such things which are accepted by both the parties. The key takeaway for this slide: disputed facts needs proof. In tax matters, the law may favor the tax authority's interpretation if the taxpayer chooses a more beneficial tax treatment. These are some different types of grounds of appeals which have been categorized, in which we can take. Technical, jurisdictional, natural justice, legal grounds based on merits of the case, alternate grounds, constitutional grounds, and additional grounds. Now we are moving little into depth for grounds of appeals. Arguments should be based on grounds. Order needs to flow from SCN itself. We need to be precise and straightforward in communication and its drafting. We need to be ready and prepared to counter the findings of opposite party if the matter was discussed earlier. It will always be appreciated or a welcome step if we pre-think and make our case stronger by visualizing or bringing up the issues which may arise during the hearings at the later stage. So it can be termed as a foolproof preparation. List of some general grounds which are essential and which you can keep it by default. Impunge OIO is contrary to facts of the case, is contrary to the law. A prayer to modify, add, or alter grounds must always be mentioned. To seek the ground under principle of natural justice. To see if relief can be sought on taking the stand on various articles of Constitution as well. To be cautious for grounds not put up, which cannot be taken up or added at a later stage for hearing. It can be added only with the miscellaneous application and by the permission of the bench. Yeah. Coming down to 5 to 6 slides specifically on drafting. Few of the things we will quickly scroll on because there are, as I mentioned, there are some other practical things needs to be discussed. Sorry. Precision in every line, perfection in every draft. Friends, drafting and pleading are two of the most important aspects which can make or mar your case. जो आपका केस बना भी सकता है या बिगाड़ भी सकता है. Purpose of legal drafting क्या है? Clarity, precision, enforceability, protection of interest. Why is it important? To prevent disputes, clarify right obligations, ensuring compliances. This is more for drafting legal documents. Key principles, we'll just quickly go through it and then we'll move forward. We need to keep it simple, consistent to avoid use of jargon and technical words. जितना भी plain सरल भाषा में हो वो बेहतर है. It needs to be accurate formal language, use of definitions, avoid ambiguity. Numbered paragraph headings, cross references is required. Common challenges. How to balance detail and simplicity. We need to adhere to the legal requirements. Anticipating future disputes means the grounds, the chance, the stand with on which the opposite party will come up with. We need to be updating the reflect for changes in law as well. Crux of legal drafting is to create a document which is clear, enforceable, and tailored to meet the needs of the party involved. We are skipping few of the slides. Essential while drafting, penalty can be contested independently, even if underlying assessment order has not been appealed. Review whether any claims were overlooked or whether fresh pleas can still be raised. Make sure such overlooked claims are properly incorporated as additional grounds. To confirm that the authority passing the order was duly empowered to do the same. Check that the assessment or appellate order was delivered within the legal prescribed period. There have been instances wherein, say, for example, 39 is the order issuing date, due date, cutoff date. There have been instances of orders being raised at 29 midnight on the portal with the digital signature, etc. So, service of notice, service of order, effective communication of order. These all are the important aspects which one can look at. Points to be taken in drafting grounds. Yeah. Drafting needs to be concluded with a prayer. Friends, we all are aware that at the last page, the bottom, a prayer comes, which is seeking of relief on what grounds and what aspects. It is simple but of importance because if it has not been mentioned or missed out in the prayer, then such relief, although due, although the authority wants to give to the taxpayer, but they cannot do the same. प्रेयर में आपको क्या रिलीफ चाहिए वो बखूबी लिखी हुई होनी चाहिए. Next, to frame grounds broadly so that they do not limit the scope of the arguments. Grounds open-ended रखे कि बाद में उसमें कोई एक या दूसरा एंगल भी आप लेना चाहे या प्लीड करना चाहे तो आपके पास स्कोप रहे. To avoid jargon, if multiple issues exist, arrange the ground in logical order of importance or quantification as discussed. The last but not the least, the final ground should reserve the right to add, modify, or withdraw other grounds. To address every ground systematically and avoid repetition. To clearly bring out the nature of dispute and the remedy requested. To examine the order closely to cover any implicit or overlooked grounds. For example, in one of the order which we are going through, in the detailed order, they've mentioned of a specific section of penalty, but in the end of the order, while summarizing the same aspect has not been mentioned or penalty under that section has not been raised. So the question arises whether in the prayer that aspect needs to be covered or one should keep silent. To specifically point out if SSC was denied an opportunity of hearing. As we all might be aware, earlier there were two tabs on the GST portal to raise the notice. One normal notice tab and another additional notice tab. There have been numerous High Court judgments wherein if the order SCN has been put up in the additional notice tab, then the same was not allowed by the High Courts and the matter was remanded back. Later on, with the update in GST portal, they have merged both the tabs and now it is a common flow. So friends, in routine we may think कि notice order नोटिस स्टेप में या एडिशनल नोटिस स्टेप में है, हाउ डज इट मैटर? बट going technically, going legally, going in detail, High Court has given many favorable judgments wherein अगर वो ऑर्डर एडिशनल टैब में अपलोड किया गया है, then there is a chance or scope for the taxpayer to get it demanded back or set aside. Some don'ts: do not bundle several grounds under one issue unless each ground raises a distinct point. Keep sentences short and to the point. Grounds should be such they should state facts and law clearly and not argue them. Argument आप synopsis, personal submission, later on pleading के वक्त रखें. Grounds of appeal आप open ended रखें. Very important, case laws or decisions should be cited with submissions but not inside the ground. Three more important aspects in regards for citation of case law. If necessary, then only to cite case law, not to cite case law at the first submission, because one might not be aware at what point of time when the hearing will come. It may take few months, more than 6 months, or a year or so, as the case of the forum may be. There are chances that new and better case laws might have come up by then. If unfortunately your mentioned case law has been overruled, then instead of going it in favor, it will mar your case to some extent. So please bear in mind this few aspects regarding citation of case laws. I'll just take a moment. Yeah. Next. Drafting the submission. I'm just noting and we'll skip few of the slides. If time permits, we'll come at the end. Yeah. It's important to balance technical provisions with sound legal reasoning. What is the technical side and what is the legal side? So, technical side, we all are aware of the CGST Act and rules thereby, which might be there. It might be rigid, delay, procedural lapse, which can result in denial of benefits. Moving down to legal sides, there can be principles like natural justice, substantial compliance, judicial recognition of system glitches, interpretation doctrines, and also constitutional safeguards. So professions must aim for full technical compliance with timely filing and documentation, but where lapses occur, to rely on legal principles, equity, and precedents to argue that substantive compliance exists and denial would not be unjust. We all are aware and have seen that earlier the trans credit issues were there. A lot of petitions were being filed, and high courts had given some relief to the taxpayers as well. So under law, it's nothing like if the date or time has passed and now nothing can be done or there is no recourse to the taxpayer, it may not be the same. GSTAT first final order of anti-profiteering judgment we'll discuss, and the key takeaways we'll discuss as well. The case is involved of Urban Essence, which was a Subway franchise in Maharashtra, wherein GST on restaurant service once when reduced from 18 to 5 in November 17. So instead of passing on the benefit, the company raised and maintained base prices, leaving customers with no relief. The tribunal held that since businesses are legally presumed to pass on tax benefit to the customers, the reduction was required. They ordered to deposit X amount of money with consumer welfare firm. And importantly, GSTAT clarified that investigation can extend beyond the complaint item to the full product line. And interest must be paid with no retrospective penalty. So it's a good signal giving strict but fair adjudication. Key learnings from the same: to pass on tax benefits, keep proper records, be ready for future complaints. Law assume benefits should go to consumers. To defend otherwise, you must give strong evidence that why not. This is one of the practical template which I was discussing in the beginning. Before we move on to the same, I would like to discuss at this stage the other practical insights. Please stay with me. These are not mentioned in the slide. I'll just discuss it orally. After the case law of Urban Essence, the yesterday first GSTAT order was issued. It was a case of Messrs. Sturley and Wilson Private Limited versus Commissioner GST Department of Odisha. So facts were like the order was passed earlier. At the adjudicating level, it was under 74. Dispute was relating to short payment of tax in comparison to 3B GST 1, 990 and other data. Taxpayer had already submitted a reconciliation statement with regards to credit notes, debit notes, and a reconciliation statement early at the time of adjudication and maybe also at the time of first appeals. The case was put up under 74, when the first appeals moved the case from 74 to 73, seeing that there was no mens rea and it didn't warrant the section 74. Coming back to tribunal, it was related to FY 1819. Tax liability was approx 27.06 lakhs plus interest and penalty. Now in second appeals, they moved the case to section 73 and department took the plea under 75.2. The 73.1 will be levied and tax, interest and penalty still needs to be paid. Tribunal, after going through the matter and the facts of the case, they have finally remanded back the matter, giving relief to the taxpayer and also another opportunity to the adjudicating officer to look into the reconciliation summaries, etc., facts of the case, and come back with their order. During the arguments in the judgment, it is noted that from the DR side, they are not willing for the tribunal to remand back the case, stating that it will form a precedent and many such cases will follow, wherein the tribunal members have mentioned that in case of remanding back the case, it needs to be seen on case-to-case, fact-to-fact basis, and hence this first order, which has been arrived yesterday, is a welcome step, and we can also see and note the view of the tribunal by this order itself. Few other points which I want to discuss. So key takeaways from this first GSTAT order, in my opinion, are that issue on hand is important. How it is presented, that is also important. How effective are submissions at the adjudication and first appellate authorities? Because the taxpayer could put up an entire table in the chart with page numbers as the annex in their paper book. What all submissions they have given for this reconciliation for the adjustment of the short tax payment, which earlier the department authority had just taken out on the mere comparison of 3B and 1. But mere comparison may not be the case. There might be a proper justification or a reconciliation. If gone through, then the matter can come to another light. Additional submissions are also allowed in the remand back case, and it depends on the directions of the tribunal and the high court, as the case may be. Next point, citations of judgment, we have already covered. Another important aspect to consider is the date of SCN and the date of order. The gap, sorry, the gap should be of 3 months, that is 90 days. In one of the recent judgment, even if this gap is small, then the order can be quashed by the relevant high court. Condonation of delay, this is an important aspect wherein we have seen high courts have also not entertained further delay than what the statute gives for first appeals, 3 + 1 month. So timelines are of paramount importance under GST. Speaking for GSTAT, still the timeline is open. So regarding condonation of delay, it's
Hello.
still time to see at the later
ஹலோ
stages.
மேடம் இன்னும் லேட்
இது மீட்டிங் போயிட்டு இருக்கு.
Request other participants to keep the mic muted. Another interesting audit which had come, I would like to discuss, was in regards of a manpower supply for a client of us. Now, as we all might be aware that under 17(5), outdoor catering and food, the ITC on the same is blocked and not allowed, except if it is for some mandate of by some statute. In this particular case, the manpower service agency was supplying manpower to an industrial area, to factory premises, wherein because of some security reasons and their timings, the employees had to stay there for more than 14 hours each, and hence it was necessity and required for the employer to provide food and other amenities to his employees. At the adjudication level, this point had come up in the notice. Although it is barred under 17(5), with this exception, moving and taking aid of allied laws. Friends, allied laws means there are many laws apart from GST in India which would be applicable to a particular business. For example, for every manufacturing unit, there's also a factory act, a factory license certificate is required. Labor laws are there. n number of other allied laws are present. So, taking aid of such allied laws under Factory Act, we could make out and find out an option wherein the blockage of 17.5, although applicable, but was not applicable for our case, and the same fact was really appreciated at the adjudicating level itself, and we were successful in giving the relief to our client. Another aspect is regarding the RCM payment on royalty matters. Many mining quarries and clients are getting such notices for RCM. As I mentioned earlier, in one of the case, the timeline needs to be decided. In one of the other case, the department is asking for data from FY 17-18. Now we all are aware that the timeline to pass orders under 73-74 for 17-18, 18-19 has already lapsed. SCN under 74 stage for FY 19-20 has also been lapsed. So whenever such a incident or a requirement comes up from the department side, then we need to take help and aid of section 160 subsection 2 of CGST Act, when it says that if during our first reply we have not opposed the notice on any of the technical grounds, and if we have given them a suitable reply, then after this first reply, we cannot take the plea of technical grounds from then onwards for that particular period. So, meaning thereby, if you have not raised this ground in your first reply, then later on, if we realize or if we come to know by someone's help that you need to take this aspect, then in the second reply, we cannot take this ground. So you may please refer to section 160 subsection 2 and take help and aid of the same. Yeah, so these were a few of the practical aspects which I wanted to discuss. We can move on with our presentation now. This we have taken a template to serve as a reference for OIO. We have seen like there will be background issues for determination. Here we have taken an issue of ITC, transaction with cancelled non-existent supplier, proposed demand, sustainable in law, relevant legal provisions which we get in the OIO, 16.250, 74.1 penalty sections. Sorry. There are findings of facts, mismatch of ITC supplier status, syndicate linkages, quantum of wrongful ITC, interest liability, penalty. Reasoning will be mentioned on ITC on different aspects, what the department states or what they want to convey. And final, the summary order will be there, confirming their demand, interest, penalty, etc. And mentioning of right to appeal. Here we have just taken up a template to show and discuss few of the aspects. It also might be helpful to those who have yet to do many appeals or just starting down with litigation practices. Now, as for statement of facts, this aspect is more important than grounds of appeal and also pleading, because the things, the material, the substance put up here today now will travel to the higher forums if the case is so, or it moves to the next forum. Background of appellant, departmental proceedings, nature of transactions, agreement, arguments given, opportunity of cross-examination, statement of such supplier, investigating inspection report of the non-existing firms or the supplier. At times we get the remarks or issue regarding cancelled supplier, but care needs to be taken that such suppliers, their numbers are being suo motu cancelled by the department from past retrospective date. Meaning thereby, at present, if you see, for example, the supplier's GST number has been cancelled, say with effect from 1/9/2020. But the transaction which the client might have carried out was during March 21. At the time of March 21, the supplier's registration number was active and working. Later on, because of some inquiry, search proceedings, etc., inspection, the supplier was not found, not available, and the department says suo motu cancel the number from retrospective date. So such clarity, such stand needs to be taken. How to highlight that the supplier was active during March 21 period? On the portal, you can get the GST table of filing, wherein the filing months, the periods are readily available. So we can take a screenshot of the same and put up to substantiate our claim that at the time of my transaction, the supplier's number was active. So friends, looking to the facts and matter of the cases, there can be many more aspects. Which point to take, which stand to take. Demand for cross-examination, demand for RUD relied upon documents, henceforth. Now, one of the grounds of appeal here for our template cases, allegation of fake invoice without movement of goods. Now, appellant had produced documentary evidence of tax invoice, e-way bill, transport challan, bank payment proof, demonstrating actual movement of goods. The point to make is adjudicating authority has not proved any cogent evidence disproving these documents and has proceeded merely on assumptions. Denial of ITC and without substantiate evidence is contrary to law and principle of natural justice. Mere suspicions arising from action against supplier cannot in law translate into guilt for the purchaser. Hence, appellant should not be painted with same brush as defaulting supplier, and suspicion cannot be said to be substitute for evidence. The appellant's documents here will speak louder than assumption of the department. Next, ITC from cancelled non-existent supplier. The same points which we have discussed. There was one case of Himachal Pradesh High Court, Himalaya Communication, wherein petition ITC was denied because supplier GST was retrospectively cancelled, as we discussed in the example. Court has set aside the order, held that denial of ITC solely on ground of such cancellation is improper. Authorities must examine genuineness of transaction, invoice, tax payment receipts, and hence the matter was remanded back. Another engineering tools judgment was cited for Madras High Court. Facts were petitioner that invoice, e-way bill, transport, and bank payment proof. Supplier's registration was retrospectively cancelled. Sorry. Legal question: whether ITC reversal was justified. It was held no. Court quashed the order. Mere retrospective cancellation cannot be ground to deny ITC. You must consider petition documents and test genuineness. Matter was remanded for fresh assessment. Friends, for cases pertaining to 74, mens rea, fraud, misstatement, willful misrepresentation are of paramount importance. If the same is not brought into paper or coalition of taxpayer and supplier is not substantiated, then at the higher fronts, it may become a difficult case from the revenue side to prove the same. So please bear in mind which all aspects, which all points which are required, you may need to take. ITC denied on ground that suppliers return were defaulter. They not paid or maybe shown it under 1 and not paid 3B, etc. There have been many judgments wherein the honest and genuine taxpayer should not and will not bear the brunt of any default made on the part of the supplier, the purchasing part. Allahabad High Court in RT Infotech, what the hell? Facts were assessed purchase which are coupon from maybe a dealer distributor from Bharti Airtel and Novel ITC on valid invoices. Payment was made through RTGS, good service was received. Department denied RTC on the ground that supplier not filed return and some invoices did not appear in 2A. The court caused the denial favoring the assessee and observed that once buyer complied with all statutory conditions, invoices, receipts, proof of payment, department cannot punish the purchaser for supplier's default. So friends, unless collusion or fraud is shown, ITC in normal cases cannot be denied. It will be denied at the adjudication of first appeal level, but there are higher forums wherein principle of natural justice will play a more important role and relief can be sought for the taxpayers. Suncraft Energy, similar judgment. Some common grounds to be adopted: violation of natural justice, constitutional and equitable grounds regarding violation of Article 14, equality before law, 19(1)(g), right to trade, needs to also be mentioned. Prior, as we had discussed, it is important. Point number 4, grant such order and further relief as may be deemed just and proper in circumstances of the case. The last line of this slide, appellant craves leave to add, alter, or amend any ground at a later stage. Structural flow for this explanation. Sorry. To start with simple background, who appellant is, what business, GST, narrate chronological order. List issues exactly as in order. Grounds of appeal, take up each issue separately with facts, law, fairness. Prayer to always end with a clear ask, set aside order, allow ITC cost demand. Means to make and keep the prayer as specific as possible and required, not to leave it on a generic terms. Some other pointers to go through. Just give me a moment, please. Law needs to be read harmoniously and absolutely. We need to have a 360-degree overview or idea for the same. Intent of lawmaker in the statute needs to be seen. Although there is a rule of interpretation of literal interpretation, but in the broader sense, intent of statute maker is important. Reply on merits, take shield of Evidence Act, erstwhile Evidence Act, now BSA 2023. Sorry. Check out whether revenue has proof for the allegations made. Already discussed inspection report, cross-examination, RUD. If it's a classification issue of GST rate of like earlier 1812 or 12.5, let the revenue prove it first. To take a clear stand, communicate taxpayers' claim and defend their stand. Be cautious while introducing new material or facts. Statements on oath, retraction aspects should be taken care of. Position of law without prejudice, conclusion, general rules of interpretation, recovery proceedings after FA before GSTAT. Earlier we had a trend of giving undertaking signed undertaking with another 10% pre-deposit that the taxpayer intends to move to GSTAT. So no recovery proceedings after FA first appeals could take place. Now we are coming to the last portion of the slides. We'll take up, as we have time, we'll take up those drafting slides in between, and then we can wrap up a session by around 7. I hope you all are enjoying. If you can, and the pace is fine. If some of you can put up in the chat or comment box, it will be grateful. Another important aspect, psychology of members. Friends, GST litigation is just not a one-sided ball game. It is akin, means similar to a chess game, wherein the first few moves always become crucial at times. In the chess game, the first few moves in the end may save the king or change the course of the entire game. Few other aspects to consider. Psychology of members, judges. There will be judicial members, technical members, and the admin staff, the registry. Judicial members will be focusing more on law, precedents, natural justice. They ensure fair hearing, strive for neutrality, decide on legal procedural strength. Technical members, they'll bring in practical industrial knowledge, which can be convinced with genuine trade rationale. Registry is fine. General factors to consider: Supreme Court rulings guide tribunal approach. There may be some backlog pressures coming down. GST being new, the members may rely on the procedure as other aspects of the erstwhile GSTAT era. Presentation and quality of the authorized representative will make strong impact. So we need to take all these aspects in mind while presenting a case for first appeal or second appeal. Judicial expectations, points for determination. On assessment order discussion of evidence, prima facie judgment, both party concerns. Assessee is asked to give his explanation, issues and charges are discussed, evidence, contentions, reasons for arriving at findings, opinion of judge. No personal information will be allowed, only information on record will be allowed. No hypothetical questions to be answered. Logical reasoning to findings, coming to a conclusion by deductive process, intuitive process, writing style. These all are some aspects of how the judgment is been made. Couple of sliders on structure for replying to SCN. Although today's topic is more for GSTAT, but this will highlight also the importance of how the matter needs to be put up or taken up at the first stage itself. You may see in many of the SCN, their usage of words appear which comes many times. So due investigation or proper procedure with evidential proof or reason to believe is not followed. SCN may not indicate under which section or provision of law it is required. Personal hearing may have been given but had not been availed for whatsoever the reason. The reasoning may be brought into on records. The allegation was that tax has been escaped or not paid. No inference towards types of taxable supply, whether falling under schedule or exemption list, whether income actually arised or not. (26) years versus 3B. Non-speaking in regards of classification, taxing indigenous needs to be fulfilled. Need proper base backed by evidence to claim and prove the allegations. No new information can be asked for once SCN has been issued. As issue of SCN is the end of investigation from revenue side. Take shield under Evidence Act, onus of proof, relevant board circulars, instructions to be followed, limitation period to be seen, come tax benefits. If there's a case of person who is not registered under GST, and say for example, 1 crore turnover has been found in his bank, and you get a GST notice, then the plea can be put up that this 1 CR turnover, if it's come from the GST department, then it is presumed to be inclusive of GST. So if it is 5% or 12%, then this 1 crore is equal to 112. So this is called come tax benefit. We need to plead a matter, relief prayer. As time permits, we'll move on to the 3 drafting slides, and then we can open up the forum for Q&A. Tax Guru team, Sanjay, are you available?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Participants, if you have any questions, you can drop them in the chat box to the organizing team. Meanwhile, we'll take up the 3 slides on drafting, and then we can maybe wrap up later.
No question, sir.
Okay, thanks, Sanjay. While drafting or submission, this few other points needs to be taken care. We need to gain a thorough understanding of the assessment and appellate order with all case details. Begin submission with basic facts of case and brief history on assessment. Present arguments with confidence in the merits of the case. To back a submission with paper book, which is an entirely separate different subject, which includes all supporting documents. To gather and compile every piece of evidence before filing. Draw a clear line between additional grounds of appeal and additional submissions to be made. To structure submissions issue-wise, ensuring they are balanced, objective, and well organized. Any fresh facts may be put up as supplementary evidence. Facts needs to be separate. Respond to AO's allegations with precise remarks and explanations. To begin submissions with factual details followed by judicial precedents. To emphasize the background, ensure proper formatting, etc. As discussed, drafting is a skill and art to convey clients' facts position clearly to revenue. Knowledge of other laws, a 360-degree overview of subject matter can be helpful. Language should be clarity, having point-wise to maintain timeline of events. Analytical skills for pleading is required, and to think about counter questions coming up and be prepared with the same for the content. So friends, hereby we complete our today's presentation. If anyone has any questions, you can drop down in the chat box, or I'll share the contact details wherein you can mail us. Yes, Sanjay, if you would like to conclude, then we can wrap up the session.
Thank you very much, sir, for a wonderful session, sir. Again, thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you, participants. Thank you, Tax Guru.